of prayers or conjurations to try and bring good health to her mother. She's really stressed about that, right? That's obviously affecting the mother. It affects her feeling attractive to her husband and worthy to her husband. It's stressing the husband because she is putting up these unfortunate defensive walls. It's all understandable, right? And the daughter is stressed naturally, like any movie. She doesn't want to be there. And her mom's on her about boys, and it's creating a little divide between them. And then the youngest child, Jack, it's almost like any movie. The supernatural always are more likely to reach out to the children because they're more open to something, or they see something that adults have forgotten how to see, or however the explanation is. And Benny, he's kind of my outlier. It's because he's into drugs, even though it's just a little pot, it seems, right? Mm-hmm. And he's into spacey things. We see him looking through solar system maps and stuff. So he's drawn maybe to this. So everyone has something which in a horror movie you would probably normally use to show that someone is susceptible to a madness and influence of something, right? Being touched by something. And so they all have these things, and as a result, they also all take different paths of madness. So Nick Cage is this kind of skitzed out madness. And Teresa, she kind of zones out. She's more separated. She zones out. She cuts off her own fingers. Maybe her, I don't know if they were trying to give some allegory with how she fused with her son. That was a thing. Right?
The Lavinia, thing.
Right. Lavinia seems to kind of connect to this, but I don't know if that's because of her connection to this Alexandrian or Wiccan practice, because it's almost like she becomes the conduit and or new high proselytizer of Lovecraft on Earth at the end. Mm-hmm. You know, so all these people have these different behavior patterns, and the child is behaving like a child. He hears things people don't hear. Nick Cage smelled things no one else smelled.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
The time distortion only affected a couple of them. So there's all these things going on in this movie. So when Nick Cage is being Nick Cage, we tend to notice that, I think, and be like, oh, he's being Nick Cage. But I think in a way it complemented the diversity of flavors and shapes of madness that kind of bespeckled the screen through its running time.
Man, that's a great point. And you know what's interesting about this movie is I never really thought about that, because I've always just enjoyed letting the experience wash over me. It was only until I did the research for this episode where I listened to interviews, I read interviews about this. I think Fantastic Fest, Patton Oswalt moderated a questionnaire, a Q&A with Stanley and Cage, and I've learned a lot about it through that. But I've always just been content letting this movie wash over me. I've never really went in depth with it, but I think that's positive for the film when you can just enjoy it on a experience level and not a what was that level. Because I never once, John, thought, what is this thing? Why is it here? Why is this? What's the twist? What is this? And I dug into it maybe in my third or fourth time, but no, I actually love what you said, but I've never considered that, because I've always looked at this as a movie that just washes over you and you can just enjoy it on a sensory blasting level.
I think that's a credit also to the characters, editing, and pacing of the film, because now granted, on viewing 4 or 5, we get a little more critical, right? Because things are more familiar. It's easier to notice things because we know it's coming up. But I feel like when I watch something for the first time, if I'm thinking about the things that you're talking about, am I thinking about them after the movie's over or during the movie? If I'm thinking of it after the movie's over, that means that this movie was constantly hitting me with things that I was interested by, curious about, impressed by, or just visually, being overtaken by effects, like all these things, right? But a lot of horror movies or sci-fi movies are going to have their periods of exposition, or you're quiet getting to know the characters, and sometimes that's not so magical. And I think those are the times where we take breaks between the creature scenes, if you will, to actually think about that previous creature scene or thing that happened. But if the characters are always good, and if you actually invest yourself in what's happening on the screen pretty much all the time, I don't think you get a time to think about that again until the credits start. And by then, you might have forgotten about all the specific things that you were curious about, right? Because you're on the ride. You're on the Willy Wonka psychedelic ride in this case, right? At the end, you're just like, what just happened?
Yeah, just embrace the ride. And I think that's
Right.
because all the colors and the editing and the performances and I think yeah, you're just able to like you said a magical mystery ride, and you soak up the experience. And there's these movies are so rare. I truly believe that these ones that you can just I don't know enjoy on a sensory level. And I don't know. I feel like it's very visceral, well made, and I'm just happy that what Richard Stanley was able to kind of come back and redeem himself. He's been living in the Pyrenees, John, all these years, just
Right.
writing
Has a lovely
scripts,
cabin.
and then he comes back and makes this movie. It was pretty interesting what Nick Cage said. He had just gotten done with Mandy, and I believe Spectre Vision produced this, and he had just gotten done with Mandy. Like, hey, we got something else for you. He's like, well, great. I just got off this movie. Now I got to go do another one. But he's like, Richard Stanley. He almost worked with him in the 90s. And so now he's like, Color Out of Space. He read the script. He's like, oh, okay, the one person I know who can make a movie like this is Stanley, because his other movies, Hardware, which you've watched, John,
Hmm.
they have a very interesting color scheme as well. So he said that Stanley was the one guy who could make this, and he says largely magenta. I know that's off topic for what we're talking about, but this, I don't know. I think I love movies like this because it's so rare for me just to sit and get like let an experience wash over me nowadays. If that makes sense. I don't there aren't many movies I can think that I just sit there and you know when they show Nicole Kidman in the movie theaters watching those movies and she's just in wow. Do you know those commercials for AMC?
Yeah, yeah.
And she's watching Jurassic World. And you're like, what? How many movies did you watch that day? But I feel like that watching this movie. Just the images hit my like are hitting me, and I never once questioned what this thing was. I just knew it came to Earth, got in the water, got in the well, couldn't see it, kids could hear it, things went terrible, don't drink the water, aquifer, and then it was over. But yeah, I wish there was a commentary. And also too, John, the director laments that he wishes that there was more to this movie because in the Blu-ray there are deleted scenes, but there's about 15 minutes of them. And I don't think the movie needs another 15 minutes. You can't
It is a solid hour 50, I think,
yeah,
right?
you can't clear 2 hours with a sense. I mean, I know 2001 does it. There are, but that's on one hand, you could probably name that. I think this movie is better served by being under 2 hours, just in and out, hits you. I don't. I think if it drags, you're taken out of that world. So I like that those scenes weren't added in, even though they kind of lament being taken out. But I don't think they did anything for the plot because you still understand what's going on without them. I would say. And you know what?
Hmm.
It was really nice that there was a sheriff that just was chill. The sheriff,
Right, right.
he was not a jerk. He got it. He kind of rolled. He understood the situation. He trusted Ward. I was like, this is a nice sheriff? Have there ever been nice sheriffs in movies? You know what I mean?
He's a hydrologist, and the sheriff shows him like those dead alpacas in the back of the pickup truck. He's just like, "What do you make of this?" He's like, "You're the only scientist I know," basically. It's so because they're so remote. They're so remote. They're like an hour from a hospital. So in that case, he's just like, "I need a referral. What do you think?"
I love that. That was so refreshing, right? He's like, hey, come take a look at this. And I also like when the horse goes running past him. I love the horse's name is Comet, by the way.
That's when he turns on the lights.
Yeah. And so the sheriff, I mean, I know the sheriff eats it, but it was really refreshing not to have a tropey sheriff. And I also really liked Ward in this movie, Elliot Knight. I I
Mhm.
I don't I think at the end, his scene on the dam when he's looking out at the water, his interactions with the characters, the way he plays the guy, it was I don't know, I dig it. I think he and the lady from Tremors would get along. The seismologist. They're just chill.
It's interesting too, because Ward, he's like the investigator, the academic, and Lovecraftian stories, not necessarily all the movie adaptations, right? But the Lovecraftian stories actually often revolve around, or at least include, a significant character who is an academic or investigator.
Hmm.
And in the case of the Reanimator,
Yeah.
they're the problem. In the case of the movie The Resurrected, which is I think called The Curious Case of Charles Dexter Ward, actually, um, that again, that person is the instigator of the problem, conjuring these necromantic forces that end up taking his life and others' lives. But so in even the Unnameable, that's Randolph Carter. If anyone's heard of the Unnameable movies, there's two of them. But you often have this, whereas normally they're front center stage. In this, he's just rather an equal character to the family members.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit less than equal. He's there though. The component is there, but he's not like the star of it. And I wonder if that was deliberate or if that's just how this happened to be written. That this character was present.
Yeah, it is interesting because you do think that maybe because he gets the narration in this movie, so you do think maybe that this guy is the main.
Beautiful narration.
Yeah, you know what I like too about his narration. So I took notes in the beginning, but like what the axes have never seen these trees and sunlight and dark narrow glens, and I like his narration because it's not super monotone. It's more dreamy. You know, John, how much I hate monotone narration in these kind of movies. The world, what the heck? No, but I love it. It's very dreamy, and it really does capture an interesting sense of isolation, of danger. It makes the woods seem dangerous. Like, remember we watched The Ritual,
right.
and I think I like how they shot the trees in The Ritual to make them seem super tall. Like, you're lost the way they shot that 2-to-1. So I dig
The Hallow.
Oh yeah, The Hallow. The way they shot that.
The Hollow, that Irish movie.
Oh, that's one. Yeah. Wait, what's The Hollow?
Yeah. No, there are movies. There's a movie called The Hallow, but The Hollow is the 2015 Irish movie about the dendrologists and then those weird fairy creature monsters.
Yeah, those are cool.
Were there that we were potted about. But
yeah.
That had this equally enchanting, primordial, beautiful, but dangerous and maybe like illustrious but dark, kind of untouched by humanity, and thus humanity doesn't necessarily have a place there.
Oh, did you get that vibe from this? I got more of a. What do when these shots spoke to me? They gave me more. That's really interesting. You said that. Yeah, I guess it didn't make me seem like the woods were evil. It just made me seem like they were ancient and engulfing and.
So it's at the end, but the narration includes the word evil, like the question that something evil may be out there.
Yeah. Oh, because remember they said that too. They said something evil was on the farm. There is that brought up. And also too, I mean, in the beginning, Lavinia is making no, she's not doing a curse. Yeah, she's not doing a curse. She's doing grant me protection, a ritual. Yeah, she's doing a ritual, and we don't. He does say it's Alexandrian, but she says he's wrong, but she could be messing with him. But yeah, she is doing that. And then we learn her horse is named Comet. And then a curse goes 3 times wrong. Do you think she summoned that? Or do you think... I mean,
you mean like if she did it wrong?
Yeah, but I don't think her curse would send a meteorite. I mean, that meteorite had been on the course for Earth for a very long time. So... I don't think the curse grabbed it.
Unless there was some transdimensional something or other. She had purple highlights in her hair pretty early on.
Yeah, she did. Oh, man. Yeah, she had purple highlights, and then it comes down purple. Oh.
You got to wonder, is that just their design and wardrobe people having fun? Or...
See, that's a good question, though. That's something where you notice it and you're like, oh, that's clever. And that's a good question to have. I think this question that we have right now, John, is clever because is good. We're asking, did this ritual do it? Purple hair. She wants this to go. We know curses can go bad. It does go 3 times as bad. Magic comes at a cost when you ask for that. So yeah, I do think even if it didn't, it's still a really good question to have. It just adds another layer to this movie, which once again I love. Oh
my goodness, Mark. I just got struck by a comment. Holy crap. Well, ready?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a reach. It might be just a funky set of coincidences, right? Okay. She does a ritual. We're arguing maybe she did something wrong, right? That's how the movie The Gate, that's how a lot of horror movies get started. She's already got the purple in her hair. Horse is named Comet. She's doing this for her mother's health to make the cancer go away. her mother's worst affliction from this is that her child becomes like a full body tumor.
Oh, magic comes at a cost.